in what is MapReduce and what's the Hadoop, Spark, and then we will look into this artificial intelligence, what is AI and application of AI in different fields. Then we will we will get into some introduction, not in detail. We will look into detail in next session. So we will just get into the introduction of these machine learning, deep learning, and distributed deep learning for big data analytics. So these are the agenda, and let's see if time persists. Then we will look into these topics today. So here we have new need of new tools. So we all know, previously, the tons of data generated. The if we see a previous earlier to 2000, we had data was generated, but we had uh, mm, limited storage capacity, and the amount of data generated was not too much big. When internet evolved and the companies like Google has crawled internet and try to access all the data over the internet, then the amount of data that is generated is enormous. So we will look into how data has generated and how it has evolved over the time. And the other thing is that's why we need big data, because we had enormous amount of data till 2000s, and we need data we need a processing system and the storage system to store that amount of data. And since we the hard disks and the storage capacity that we had in 90s were too expensive, so we wanted a cheaper thing, like how we need a cheaper storage capacity. And we had a traditional databases. So traditional databases is like MySQL, Oracle, IBM DB2, etc. So these were the traditional databases that we had. uh, the main problem with these traditional databases were they were relational databases. They were data were stored in rows and columns, and the size of that database is cannot go too big. So the problem with these databases were they were not able to scale. So we can't scale these databases. So that was the problem. And other thing is need of cheap, scalable, and efficient way to process this enormous size data. So we know, like we had amount enormous data, but we needed that a process to like we needed the system to process this enormous amount of data. So that was the things. I think we can have multiple more than this. We can say we can have more reason to say we need new tools. But I think these were the main reason. That's why we needed the new tools like big data. So if we say data evolution, so in early 2000, we had a company like Google, Yahoo, and these company has like these were the company who made their search engine, and they crawled over all the internet. So the only because of internet and the companies like Google who were crawling the internet, so the amount of data that was generated was enormous. So if we say data evolution, uh, in 1986, 1986, we had started this digital age, digital kind of thing. Like were started storing data in digital. We were we were storing this data in very little amount. Like we were storing around 1% of information that we had at that moment in digital form. So over the time, we were storing the data over the cassettes and in some analog mediums like different kind of floppies and cassettes and paper films, etc. So we can say like after 2000s, I think in 1998 Google was started, and around 2000 we have like we were we were doing like we were uh, generated this amount of data, like enormous data. So after 2000 or 2002, where this digital age has started, when we have converted our data into, like we have stored around 50% of our data in digital form. And so that was the time when we have digital like we have sufficient data, we can say, in digital form. And at that time, like around 2002, the mm, storing capacity has increased a lot. Previously we had floppies or cassettes, but around 2000s we have hard disks. Yeah, so since our storing capacity has increased, we have and the amount of data that has generated was enormous. This We can store maximum amount of data in digital form. So about, after that, we can say after 2002, there was a beginning of digital age. So if we can see after 2000s, we have different companies like Facebook or Amazon was there. So Facebook was doing what, like they were storing data like related to like people were doing started posting tons of information about themselves, their images. So the data evolution has like data evolution was there. Like we had stored a petabytes of data in during this time. And the e-commerce site like Amazon was like storing information related to uh, product, like how customers are purchasing over their sites, and what was the interest of millions of customers. So they were started capturing enormous data related to customers and the products, like how uh, how a person or customers are purchasing their items. So these are the time when we had enormous data. And since we have enormous data, we had a chance, like we can uh, switch to a system where we can store those data and we can process those data. So that was the thing. If we can see our traditional databases, so uh, uh, we had a traditional databases like Oracle, MySQL, IBM DB. So if we can see in 90s or early 2000s, we were storing data in MySQL or Oracle. So since they were relational database, and we can define schemas for storing those data. So in these databases were phenomenal for storing small data. Like if we have a data in GBs or MBs, even in GBs or some TBs, the data storage and processing of those data over these databases were phenomenal. But when we have that amount of data has increased, these databases has start failing, because they were not designed for that amount of data. Because the if we had a database which is in GBs, and we want to join those data, and we want to do some processes over, like updation or some kind of processes over those tables, that it was taking a lot of time. And since we had like till 2000, the hard disk costs were expensive. Like it was too expensive. So we weren't able to store those PBs of data in our hard disk, and we So there were some limitations of these relational databases or traditional databases. That's why we were not able to process the data in PBs. So the one more thing, like scalable databases. So since these databases were not scalable to that extent for these amount of data, so there was a problem with these traditional databases of scalability. So the solution was big data tools like Hadoop or Hive, or now we have a Spark and other thing. So what was the motivation for big data? Why we went for a big data? We know, like, we have enormous data. First is we had enormous data generated over the internet. The other thing is there was a two type of thing, like compute intensive and data intensive. So data intensive, if we say data intensive, is we have a like if we have a massive amount of data and we are doing some processes, we are doing some processes over those data, so those tasks will be the data intensive task. And we had other tasks like compute intensive task. So if we say compute intensive task were when like those tasks where we have to do a complex operations, like we have to do difference like iterative differential equations. The amount of data is small, but the processing of that data and complexity of processing is high. Like we have to do some uh, partial derivative in iterative way. So if I can say, for example, compute intensive tasks were like in there was some nuclear research, or there were some weather forecasting. In weather forecasting we were needed to do some like a lot of differential equations and differential equation computation. So the amount of data were small, but the computation was very high. That's why we need these were the thing, like compute intensive. Due to compute intensive, we we needed to like we need a, a system where we can do compute intensive over enormous data. Since previously in weather forecasting or scientific research or drug discovery, we were doing this compute intensive task over small data. So since we had enormous data, we had to have some system where we can do this kind of thing, compute intensive tasks over big data or enormous data. So that's the reason currently we have a big data and AI. If we know, if anyone know about the deep learning is a system where we can do compute intensive task. Like we can do in deep learning, we can do weight updation or partial differential calculation over like in iterative way. So in deep learning what we can do is weight updation in iterative fashion. So if we add big data and deep learning, we can do this compute intensive task on enormous amount of data. So there was a reason for us to do this new technology like big data and AI to come in picture, because of this data generated over the internet. So if we can see pre 2004, the other thing, like other motivation for us was parallel processing. So parallel processing is what we were doing. We had a systems that was we can say we had multiple systems which has their own memory and a CPU and RAM. So we were doing like we were uh, connecting those systems in a parallel way, like in we were connecting those systems, multiple systems in a way so that uh, uh, we can do our processing faster by assigning some splitting our task into subtasks and assigning those subtasks to multiple computers, and then merging the result from those uh, uh, parallel computers. So there was a parallel processing was there using MPI. MPI and PMB was library, or we can say tool, that was used for these parallel processing. So for doing compute intensive tasks, we had parallel processing. So pre 2004 we had parallel processing, but when we have this machine learning and all these things and deep learning, we have moved over this, and we can process uh, we can process the complex data easily. So other thing was like hard disks were quite expensive in 1970s and 80s, so the data storage costs were high. And after 2000, hard disk cost become cheap, and people became less patient and want their results in very less time. Since the hard disk cost was less, so we had a chance, like we can store uh, this enormous data over the internet into our hard disks. So that was the reason we had a chance to shift from this traditional databases to this big data kind of thing. So other thing is traditional databases were hosted on multi-core single system called database server. So if we say we had a Microsoft SQL server, and the so the problem with these SQL server were they were not scalable. So Google thought, like in 2000s they were thought we have to make our own concept. So there was a concept like MapReduce, uh, where in this thing in like we have just replaced that single box multi-core single box kind of systems to this MapReduce kind of thing. So now we have a big data. So if we can see, big data refers to the data that is too large, fast or complex, that is difficult or impossible to process using traditional methods. So previously we had traditional methods like parallel processing and other thing, and we were storing data in databases. So the big data is we mm, the system where we can process a large amount of data, we can store and process those complex data. The act of accessing and storing large amount of information for analytics has been around for a long time. So the big data is when big data came into picture when we have some when we had some limitation in traditional databases and processing capabilities. So that's the thing when we come to this point where we had a system called big data. So big data analysis has some challenges like capturing data, data storage, data analysis, searching, sharing, transfer, visualization, querying, updating, information privacy, and data sources. Since we had this amount of data and we have to store these data, so there we had various challenges. So these were the challenges that we had in big data. So we have a 5 V's in big data. So initially we had V's like volume, volume, variety, and velocity. But like this number of V's can extend from 5 to 6 or 7. Sometime people are have made like 8 V's. So these are the 5 main V's that we have currently. So volume, variety, veracity, volume, and velocity. So if we see the volume, there is a data over the statistic. There is a there is a website where it is uh, they have shown from 2010 to 2025 the amount of data that is created, captured, and copied worldwide has increased from around 2 zettabytes to 181 zettabytes over these 15 years. So the amount of data generated over from 2010 to 2025 will be enormous. So we have a volume. Hello? Yeah. Uh, am I audible now? Na?
Yes, sir, audible.
Okay, okay. So the first V in big data is volume. So we have talked a lot about this volume kind of thing. Because of volume only, this is the primary reason we have a big data. So the name itself, we can say big data due to the enormous size. So uh, we can say uh, we have learned a lot how data has increased enormous from and how it has evolved over the time. So this is just mm, uh, here we can say volume is the main characteristics in for a big data. Like year 2016, the estimated global mobile traffic was 6.2 exabytes, 6.2 billion GB, and it has become 4,000 exabytes in 2020. So we had multiple things that is contributing to increase our data. If we can say, we have mobile, smartphones, we have internet, smartphones, and IoT devices. So since nowadays, after 2014 or 15, IoT devices has like in popular it has become more popular, and we all are using IoT devices like a smart watch or different kind of smart devices that is generating data day by day. So this volume amount of data that is uh, generated is from various sources, and it will increase enormously and exponentially over the time. And the second is velocity. Though if you can see, velocity is the uh, uh, velocity is a high speed accumulation of data. Like we can say, we have different social media networks and mobile phones. So these since the amount of mobile smartphones and the social media, the number of people, millions of users are posting their uh, images and their status, their interest over these social media network, and they are communicating over this social media network. So the velocity of speed of data generation is quite high. So that's the reason we have a massive and continuous flow of data. So there is example there are more than 3.5 billion searches per day are made on Google. So there was also a study. There was a study like for every 60 second we were doing around 100k tweets and 695k plus a status update, or we were doing 699k plus searches in each 60 seconds. So the amount and the velocity of data is has increased a lot over the time. Then we have a variety of data. So if we can say a variety of data is how varied our data is. If we can say over internet we have mainly three kind of data is there: structured data, semi-structured, and unstructured. So if we can see, our structured data are mainly our tabular data. When we store our data in tabular form, these are the structured data. And the semi-structured data are mainly when we save or we save our data in JSON format or XML or CSV, TSV, emails, etc. So these are the semi-structured data. So there was, if we, it is called semi-structured because these data has a certain schema, like when we store these data in these formats like JSON or XML or CSV, and other variety of data is unstructured data. So unstructured data are mainly unorganized data. So if we can say we have a audio, video, images, and logs. So these are the data. These are very complex and unstructured data over the internet. So this is the variety uh, uh, of data. Veracity. So veracity is mainly a quality of data, like how good our data is, and is there any noisy kind of thing in our data. So because data comes from so many different sources, it's difficult to link, match, clean, and transform data across systems. And the correctness, we can say, uh, the quality and correctness of these data are very important. If we don't have these data are not uh, 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 not up to quality, like there is no meaning of storing these and processing these data, like we won't get any uh, mm, mm, useful information from these. So that's the veracity. And veracity is how inconsistent our data is, like is there any noise in the data, and how what is the quality of data we had. And the next is value. Value is we know, like we are storing data in bulk, and enormous amount of data are generated over the internet, but the value of these data are very important. How we can know, like these data are valuable for us. So for example, we have Amazon. So people are going to Amazon site and they are purchasing or searching some items, or so if there is no value of these searches, and like what Amazon is doing, like Amazon are storing these likes or searches or product buying pattern of different customers, of millions of customers, and based on those buying pattern and likes or searches, they are recommending different product to different customer. So this is the value, like uh, mm, uh, these uh, mm, these recommendation or these history and these searches are the value for Amazon. And there was a study, like for Amazon, one third of their one third of their economy, like their revenue is generated from these product recommendation. So the value of these data are very important for these companies nowadays. So we have YouTube and Netflix. So we know like Netflix is doing recommendation based on a user past data, like how customers are watching different genre of movies and what they like. So based on these they are recommending. So if their recommendation is not valuable, their recommendation is not good for a customer, they won't go for Netflix and watch these videos. So that's the value. So value of data is very important for us. And we have some challenges of big data, like we have like we know like storing exponentially growing huge data sets. We So there is a problem, like there is a challenges in storing these exponential growing data. And the other thing is processing data having complex structure. Like we know like we have semi-structured or unstructured data. So processing these unstructured and semi-structured data is quite challenging. So there is a still we have challenges in big data for doing like processing those complex structured data and processing data faster. So these are the main challenges, and for these there is some solutions, like store data in distributed environment. We have like a massive data, so we can store these data in distributed environment. And other is use deep learning that can process and handle any complex data, and it works well. So deep learning is a thing like where system where we we can handle, it is compute intensive, so we can handle any complex type of data. We can do any mathematical calculation or any processing, complex processing using this deep learning system. And the other thing, beneficial thing is deep learning is needed a enormous data to learn well, to work well. So for this, the deep learning has like combining big data and deep learning is a main thing where we can do compute intensive and data intensive, both these kind of task in a single thing, like when we combine big data and deep learning. So using deep learning with big data can solve our second problem of processing data having complex structure. So nowadays we are processing millions of images in deep using deep learning. We are processing audios, videos, all these kind of unstructured data can be handled easily using deep learning. And the other thing is processing data faster. So for this we are using GPUs and TPUs for fast processing of data. So nowadays, previously we were using cores of our CPU to process data. So the number of cores in our CPU were very less. So and we when we use GPU have like some GPU has 1000 number of cores or 2000 or 50,000 number of cores. So the cores of these GPU are not uh, mm, 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 not much powerful as CPU cores, but the number of cores in GPU and TPUs are very high. So due to because the number of cores are very high in the GPU, and when we cluster multiple GPUs over the in a system, then we can process our data very fast. So these are some thing that these are the thing that these are the point by which we can solve these big data challenges. So we have a distributed computing, and previously we had distributed and parallel computing. So mm, distributed computing deals with hardware and software system containing more than one processing element or storage element concurrent processes or multiple programs running under loosely or tightly controlled regime. So in distributed computing, we have different systems like processor and memory. We have one computing environment here. So we can interconnect multiple computing environment or multiple we can say multiple yeah we can uh, connect multiple computing environment in a we distribute our data over these like we can uh, we split our data into different subsections or sub parts, and we distribute these parts over these different uh, uh, computers, we can say. And we can like in distributed computing, when we share those data like in different computers, we use this like uh, yeah. So we split our data and share into multiple computers, and when the processing has happened, we combine those results, and so that in distributed computing, a program is split up to into parts, and that run simultaneously on multiple computers and communicating over a network. So uh, mm, now the big data, we store these in big data we have a system called MapReduce. So MapReduced is MapReduce is uh, it was like what we say. There was a motivation for MapReduce is distributed computing, where we split our data and send it over multiple computing environment, and we process those data simultaneously. So distributed computing was the main thing for the main motivation for our Hadoop based system or big data systems. So we have if we can say here distributed and parallel computing, we have a single or shared memory for parallel computers. Like we have different processors those are sharing the common memory. But in distributed computing, we have a separate processors and memory systems. So this is the main thing like distributed and parallel computing, and these are the motivation for making our systems distributed, making our big data systems distributed, and adding MapReduce into our big data system. So distributed file system was there in MapReduce. So MapReduce is a programming model and an associated implementation for processing and generating large data sets. So this model pattern is core component of Hadoop framework to facilitate. We will look into this Hadoop framework in a moment. So because distributed system were the main motivation for MapReduce, so in this what we do is we split our data, and then we map these data into key value pair. Then we combine those data, and again we do partition and then reduce. So you, user specify a map function that processes key value pair to generate a set of intermediate key value pairs, and a reduce function that merge all intermediate values associated with the same intermediate key. So we have in this we had a combine that is optional, a combine process. And the combiner is a reducer that runs individually on each mapper server, and it reduces the data on each mapper further to a simplified form before passing it to downstream. And we had a partition. Partition is a process that translates the key value pairs resulting from mapper to another set of key value pairs, and that fed to the reducer. So that was the architecture, or we can say the process of map reduce, where we split, map, combine, partition, and then reduce our data from, and we convert our data from one format or one form to another form using a distributed file system. And now we have a Hadoop. Hadoop is the main uh, open source framework that is used to efficiently store and process large data sets ranging in size from gigabytes to petabytes of data. So instead of using one large computer to store and process the data, Hadoop allows clustering multiple computers to analyze massive data sets in parallel more quickly. So in Hadoop, so if we can say in Hadoop, we have four main modules, like uh, mm, Hadoop Distributed File System, which is HDFS, and then yet another Resource Navigator, which is Yarn, and then MapReduce and Hadoop Common. So HDFS is a distributed file system that runs on standard or low-end hardware. HDFS provides a better data throughput than traditional file system, in addition to high fault tolerance and native support for a large data set. So the fault tolerance is the main thing, and that we didn't have in traditional file systems. So that was the thing, and we have yet another resource navigator, Yarn, that manage and monitor cluster nodes and resources, because in Hadoop we have multiple nodes, we have multiple data nodes that were interconnected in distributed systems, like kind of thing. So we have to manage and monitor those clusters, we have to manage and monitor those nodes, how data are coming from those nodes, and how we can how data are have to send from one node to other node. So that is the kind of thing, is scheduling a job and task is done by Yarn. And we have MapReduce. MapReduce is again a framework that helps programs to do parallel computation on data, like splitting our data into different form, and then applying map, and then reduce. So map task takes input and converts it into dataset, and that can be computed in key value pair. So map reduce was the thing that we have studied just in previous slide. And the other one is Hadoop Common. Hadoop Common was provides common Java library that can be used across all modules. So these are the main main modules that is used in Hadoop. So Hadoop HDFS. So the first main component of Hadoop is HDFS. So in this, what we have, like, data is stored in distributed manner in HDFS, and there are two components in HDFS: uh, name node and data node. So while there is only one name node, and there can be multiple data node. So name node is a master node, and all the data node are slave nodes. So and these data nodes, the data are stored over these slave nodes in distributed storage fashion. And HDFS stores data into smaller blocks, and to provide fault tolerance, HDFS uses a replication technique. So in replication technique, in that it makes copies of blocks and stores on different data nodes. So let's say we have replication factor 3. So it will create a three replica of same thing, like three replica of same block, and they store data in three form. It will. So this is the replication replication factor, and these replication factors are main thing for fault tolerance, which is used in this HDFS kind of environment. And rack awareness. A rack contains many data node machines, and there are several such racks in production. So So mainly in HDFS, we have data stored in master and slave format, where name and master is a name node, and these slaves are data nodes. And we use we use this fault replication technique uh, to provide this fault tolerance in HDFS. And we have a rack awareness, like where we have a data, and where which node we have a data node in a machine, which is a kind of rack system, where each data nodes are stored in a rack, like one above other. So this is a kind of cluster kind of thing, cluster of data nodes. So the file system on in HD. Am I audible? So the next thing is MapReduce. So as we studied about the MapReduce is, so here we have a simple structure how MapReduce is works. So when we store our data in data nodes, like when we store our data in HDFS format, then so we know, like we convert our data is from name node to data node. So when we do HDFS split, we store our data in data nodes. Then we send these data node. We send our data in key value pair to map, and map is just a function that converts these key value pair in some other format, like it further splits those key value pair in some other format. And then we have shuffle and sort for aggregation kind of thing, and it what it does is aggregate values by key. And then we have partition and shuffle and sort, and then we have reduce function to finally convert our data, like for each and every HDFS split and key value pair, we have a final key and final value. So this is the reduced form of data that we get from these HDFS file systems. So this is the MapReduce is just a converting our splitting our data into different data nodes, and then converting these data into uh, a different format, like from one format to other format. So this is just our converting our data from one format to other format. The next thing is Yarn. Yarn is yet another resource navigator. Is a resource management layer of Hadoop, and the basic principle behind Yarn is to separate resource management and job scheduling monitoring function into separate daemons. So we will learn about these all these Yarn, because these HDFS, Yarn, and MapReduce in itself, it is a big topic. There is a lot of thing that is running behind these processes. So here we are just learning some basic intuition, how these things, like how this works, like what is the basic intuition behind these. So Yarn is basically a resource management layer of Hadoop, and inside Yarn framework, we have two daemons: resource manager and node manager. So we have when we like resource manager, and we have so the resource manager attribute resource among all the completing application in the system. So resource manager is looking into how when we have a node, when we are doing a distributed kind of thing where each and every node is processing some information, so it is monitoring whether a process has completed or not. So resource manager attributes resource among all completing applications in the system, and the job of node manager is to monitor the resource usage by the container and report same to resource manager. So the resource manager node manager is looking into how much resource is using by each and every node, and resource manager is looking into whether whether a process or task has been completed by a data manager or not. So based on this status, it informs uh, to her, it informs our to our clients that this data node, like this process has completed on a particular data node. So that's the thing. And so pig and hive are also a uh, mm, these are also thing uh, we have this Hadoop. So pig and hive was like we had some classical traditional databases company like Yahoo and Facebook, and wanted to convert their codes in like in previously what people were doing, like Facebook and Yahoo were using SQL to process our relational data. So they don't want to, since in MapReduce they had to process and they had to do their task in different format. So they don't want their codes in SQL to MapReduce, like they don't want to rewrite these codes. So for this they want a system which can just convert their SQL codes, which is written in SQL, to a map reduced format, so that they can give their data to these Hadoop kind of environment. So for this, Pig and Hive are just an engine that can convert our SQL data, like data written in SQL, to a map reduced format. So Pig was invented by Yahoo, and it is used to analyze larger set of data, representing them as a data flow. Pig is generally used with Hadoop, and we can perform all data manipulation operation in Hadoop using Pig. And Hive was invented by Facebook. Hive is a data warehouse infrastructure tool to process structured data in Hadoop, and it resides on top of Hadoop to summarize big data. So uh, in it is just like if like previously Facebook or Yahoo were not using these big data systems. So to use this big data system, there was a layer which is a map reduced layer. So to convert their data to map reduced format, they use these kind pig and hive systems to convert and to convert their data to this format, so that they can use this big data kind of thing. So overall, the Hadoop ecosystem is like this. We have distributed file system, and then we have Hadoop map reduces, and then we have machine learning environment here, distributed programming like Pig, Hive, and Spark is there. We have some scheduling workflow. So we will learn about this. We will learn about this ecosystem in detail in next session. So here I just want to show you we have this ecosystem where we these distributed systems like Pig, Hive, Spark, or scheduling, and all the things are interconnected, and these are used for this Hadoop ecosystem. And the other thing is Spark. So Hadoop Hadoop was invented. When Hadoop was invented, we didn't have much enough RAM. like in 2000s, we didn't have much RAM. We had around 4 GB or 2 GB of RAMs we had. So we were doing, we were storing our data in hard disks. So processing those data in hard disks were very slow and quite expensive. That's the reason we had a big data, we had a Hadoop, but uh, uh, those systems were not fast enough because we were storing data in hard disks. So nowadays we have a RAM which is of much more size, like we have a RAM of 128 GBs. So if we make our systems in distributed environment where each and every node has 128 GB of RAM or cluster of these RAMs, so mm, so there will be a like uh, we can solve this problem of storing data and like storing data in SSD and processing these data slower. So in this case, we can store our data in RAM, and then we can use the Spark. Spark comes into existence, so we can use we can process these data directly from RAM. So previous so what we do, like in a Spark, previously in Hadoop, all the intermediate data were stored in hard disks, which were making all the things quite slow. And the Spark project has started in 2012. So, so in 2012, when deep learning was capable of processing compute-intensive tasks, so Spark were there when we had a deep learning as well, and we knew like deep learning was capable of processing compute intensive, and it can easily compute any kind of data, like whether it is audio, video, or image, or any unstructured or semi-structured data. So and we know like a Spark were there, which is like we can use we can store our intermediate results in RAMs, and Spark was there to process those data so fast from those RAMs. So then we had an option like integrate this big data using Spark and deep learning to do all kind of tasks, whether to do mixed kind of thing like compute and data intensive tasks. So originally Spark was written in programming language named Scala. So because Scala was not known to many developers, so now Spark has is also implemented in Python and Java. So and Spark was
Sorry to interfere. Mr. Nassim, your microphone is in mute.
okay. So like since when it was on mute?
It's just 1 minute.
Okay, okay. Not nice. So am I audible now?
Yeah, now audible.
Yeah. So I was discussing about Spark. Because
Uh, Again, it has gone mute. I guess some key is getting pressed.
Yeah. Am I audible now? Hello?
Yeah, you're audible now.
Okay. So I was talking about this Spark. So a Spark is basically like uh, mm,
Uh, Nasim Alam, if you're still giving the presentation, it is not audible yet.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yeah, it's now audible.
Yeah, so it become automatically. I don't know
Yeah,
why, how it happened. Yeah. So AI application in agriculture. Nowadays, we are using computer vision to detect whether there is a disease in our crop, or we can monitor our crop, and we can forecast our many things, like how our weeds are growing, and how like what can help in harvest crops. So nowadays, mm, 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 bots or drones are used in agriculture field to help people and farmers. AI application in gaming. So AI in gaming was used from like it was we can say initial application of artificial intelligence that was done in gaming field, and it can also be used to predict human behavior using which game design and testing can improve. So that's the thing. AI application in automobile nowadays. AI in automobile is quite famous, because we know Tesla has made autonomous car, and they are they are like riding those cars in US, and so they are making a lot of money from this. So AI in automobiles are used extensively, quite a lot. Even I have made a system like deep learning based model to identify a vehicle and number plates, and what were the number of wheels in that vehicle. So, and there was a one more AI application in automobile was recording and mm, analyzing the drivers, like driver behavior, whether driver is riding, like how he is riding. mm, if around like there is some if a rider is going like feeling sleepy or something else, so there can be some kind of alarm that can be generated to awake drivers. So AI in automobiles are used heavily nowadays. AI application in social media, yeah, because these Facebook, Insta, and Twitter, these companies are using like they are processing a uh, customers' data, and they want to grow as we know, like the amount of data is has grown exponentially. So they are using AI to consider like likes and accounts you follow. So nowadays there is a computing which is a graph computing that is used a lot by Facebook, using AI to know like nowadays we can say if we connect with a person, so we can get recommendation from Facebook, like you can connect or you can send your friend request to these persons. So they are using this graph computing and graph AI AI in it to recommend these and sometimes they recommend some pages. And Twitter are using AI for detecting fraud and removing some hateful content from their sites. And Snapchat are using AI based filters over images. So nowadays AI in social media is also quite popular. AI application in marketing. So if we can say in nowadays for marketing, people are using it is used quite extensively, because sometime people like when we call a person for a credit card, so people want to know whether this person is can be interested in this. So they analyze this call, then they analyze that call, and based on customer intent and uh, they, their interest, they try to find whether we should approach this person again or not. So there is a there is a one kind of thing like a Google AdWord, where Google is using AI in it. So there is this is the field where AI is using a lot, whether it's a chatbot powered AI or natural language processing or speech analytics. So in all kind of domain, all kind of data we are using, and for market and analyzing those data, and for marketing purpose. AI application in finance. So it has been reported that 80% of bank recognize the benefits that AI can provide. So nowadays, various companies and various banks are looking into, like, when we do some credit card transactions. So they want to know, based on our previous or historical transactions, like based on that, they try to give some reward, or they can give some offers to us. Or sometime people, when we know, like Amazon, when there is a Amazon big billion day sale, or some sales has happened. So they try to know about the uh, transactional behavior of multiple customers, millions of customers, and based on that, they allowed some banks or credit cards to for some offers. So these are the main reason, AI is used for finance. Now we have a machine learning. uh, yeah, we have 5 minutes, so we can wrap it up. Machine learning is uh, machine learning is a subset of AI where we just process. Learning begins with observation or data. Like machine learning algorithm build a model based on sample data known as training data. So machine learning is nothing but mm, learn a machine like a human for predicting or knowing predicting some pattern out of data. And so they make predictions or decisions without being explicitly programmed to do so. So without any human intervention, like without giving some in machine learning, we don't give any human intervention to do this kind of pattern, or we give some clue. It learns all the patterns, and based on those patterns they make our predictions. And machine learning algorithms are used in a wide variety of applications such as medicine, email filtering, speech recognition, and computer vision. Machine learning methods, we will talk about these methods in our next session. Like we have supervised learning, machine learning, unsupervised, and reinforcement learning. So supervised learning, when we give our like with training data, we will give the what is the output, like what should be the output for each and every row. So and in unsupervised, we just keep data and make our model to learn from those data and make the pattern out of it automatically without giving any clue. And reinforcement is a machine learning task where agent learn from their mistakes, they learn from their environment. And deep learning is a subfield of machine learning concerned with algorithm inspired by a structure and function of human brain called artificial neural network. So deep learning architectures such as deep neural network, deep belief network, and deep reinforcement learning, recurrent neural network, and convolutional neural networks have been applied to fields like we use these architectures in computer vision, speech recognition, natural language processing, machine translation, bioinformatics, drug design, medical image analysis, material inspection, and broad game programs. So, deep learning is a class of machine learning algorithm that uses multiple layers to progressively extract high-level features from raw input. Like when we have a data which is in the form of image, and we want to classify an image. So in this case, we have to learn these complex features. We have to learn the edges and shapes of different objects in the image. So for this, deep learning is quite useful, because in machine learning or previous things, they were not uh, much capable of doing these complex feature extraction and learning these extracting these higher level features. So that's the deep learning, because these are the easily do mm, uh, compute intensive tasks, and they need a high like they need a good amount of data, enormous data to learn good. So that's the reason, we have combined this big data and deep learning to do big data analytics. So in our next lecture, we will learn about machine learning algorithm, data visualization, data analysis using machine learning, deep learning, and distributed deep learning for big data analytics. And we will also learn about some component of Hadoop, and we will learn about Spark and all. So that's the thing. Any question?
Dear participants, it is over to you now. If you have any questions, we can ask the resource person. Alternatively, as usual, you can put your queries in the chat box also.
Hmm. Or they can send their queries to you as well, and if they want to send those queries later, so they
Yeah,
can
yes, sir.
send to you, and I will get
Yeah, so
to
that's
you.
also possible. You can send the queries to me. You
Hmm.
have my number with you. Uh,
Hmm.
that will be communicated to Mr. Nazim, and when I am getting the reply, I'll forward to you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Vikram, I'm sharing the feedback link. Participants, I send the feedback link once again in the chat box. Please find it from there and fill the feedback of day 5. So, all right, I hope your silence is understood again, as there is no question from your side. Uh, uh, Mr. Nasim, thank you so much for joining as resource person
Yeah.
for today's session. So
Yeah.
probably,
Thank you, sir.
so in fact, this is the 5th day, and we have one more day to go. Probably, I guess you were planning for continuing with some other topic also related to the thing which we you have taken today. So
Hmm.
we're planning for another workshop also in the
Mm-hmm.
month of February. So
Okay.
probably if time permits, we can continue the session in that too. That also will be
Mm-hmm.
based on data analytics and big data thing.
Hmm.
So if time permit, please join, sir, and we can continue the session which you have taken now. So Swapna, a feedback link is was shared multiple times in the chat box. Please find it there. I'm putting it again. So on behalf of the participants and the organizers of this training program, I once again thank you Mr. Nasim, for joining
Welcome, sir,
the
and
program.
thank you so much. Yeah,
I know that
all of
you
you.
are
Yeah,
very busy in your project works there. Despite those all things, you joined with us for with this training. So thank you,
mm,
sir, once again. We'll meet
yeah,
again.
yeah, sure.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank
Okay,
you,
sir.
everyone. Bye.
So, dear participants, that was the end of the fifth day of this training program. Now we have one more day to go. Tomorrow, as you know, we'll be having an examination that is the core part of one of the core part of this training session. Uh, as usual, the examination will be very simple. So kindly attend the examination without fail. So that's an important part. Like let me remind you once again, because in the previous two sessions also that was a confusion raised with the participants. Only attending the program will do. In fact, we are following the guidelines given by funding agency, that is AICTE. They are giving this training program with certain instructions. Every day we should have three training phases should be there, and at the end of the training we should conduct an examination. So the examination, it is coming, it is under the perimeter of me. So I am making the examination as simple as possible. So kindly attend the examination. This is a request my side. So like examination link will be shared tomorrow from 12:30. In fact, even though ACT is given 1 hour time, the link will be active till 3:30. From 12:30 to 3:30, the link will be active. So by then, please try to finish the examination. It is only 20 MCQ kind of questions. You can just choice out the answers. The questions will be based on the things we have gone through in this last 5 days. In fact, last 5 days. Mainly some major questions it will be coming from the training. It is given by Rocky. So some of the video links also it has been shared with you. I will connect with the technical team, and I'll connect the other videos also. I'll upload into the YouTube, and I'm planning to create a YouTube channel so that with a single channel you will be getting all videos together to you. And some of the resources in the form of PPT also it has been shared in the WhatsApp group. That also please find it from there. And I'm in touch with other resource persons also for getting more PPTs. Some of them have not responded yet, so I'll be connecting with them, and when I'm getting it, I'll share that PPT also in the WhatsApp group, so that probably it will be helpful for preparing for your examination. So with this, I guess we can conclude for today. So tomorrow we will be having our session starting from 10 o'clock as usual, with a talk by Dr. Lejish, who is an assistant professor in computer science department of University of Calicut, Kerala. So with that, we can start the session. After that, as usual, as per the guidelines of the ACT, we'll be having a small training, small, a kind of lecture for on the topic of new education policy for an hour. So after that, we'll be having a examination. So this will be the the content of tomorrow's examination. Since tomorrow is the last day, I'm trying to highlight these all things to you just to prepare for your examination. So thank you so much. I guess there is nothing more to discuss today. If you have any queries or something regarding your examination or anything, so please you can please communicate to me through WhatsApp also, or you can call me. You have my phone number, you have my email ID. Okay, so communicate to me. So I hope we can wind up today and we can leave. So thanks to you all once again.